Well, this is going to be a first for me and the podcast because I'm sitting down with Coleen Greco, who is a joyologist, and we're going to dive into exactly what that means. She offers mindset and nutrition coaching as well as personal training for those who feel stuck and yearn to reclaim joy in their lives. She serves as the executive producer and host of a podcast called Joy Unleashed, where she inspires others to transform their lives. Colleen is also a motivational speaker who collaborates with individuals and corporations worldwide. Her expertise lies in teaching people how to reclaim their joy using the SNAP method TM, a system that she developed, which we'll go into today. And this method is a powerful tool for unleashing the joy that resides within us, waiting to be set free. Colleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I can't wait to hear more about Coleen Greco. She sounds really cool.
Doesn't she? I'm always like that too. When someone reads my bio, I'm like, oh, really?
I'm
That's me?
awesome.
So we were talking about joy before we got on camera for the listeners, and I was saying how I love this topic because I consider joy to be a choice. Like I think of happiness as something that kind of blankets over you or an emotion, it comes, it goes, but joy we can achieve in the moment, I believe. And so Colleen, what does it mean to be a joyologist and what brought you to this philosophy?
So, you know, the the evolution of where I was to where I am today, it stemmed from trauma. And I don't like to just jump in and say it was trauma, right? Because I like to kind of prepare people. I have to figure out a better way to slide that in. But it was born out of trauma. So we had a trauma here in the house. One of my kids had a suicide attempt, and it was obviously
Oh,
really jarring. And I will first say, because I don't want to leave anybody in suspense, he is doing great. And I love to say he is annoying me like any 17-year-old now would.
mm,
But at the time, he was 10. And so there was no one that would talk to us, no doctors, no therapists, nothing. And what I had originally done as a coping mechanism was I ate and drank my way up to these weights that I had never seen before, other than my pregnancies. 50 pounds heavier than where I am now. And quickly realized, I'm not sure I'm handling this well. And if I'm going to help him heal, my husband and my other son heal, I have to do something differently. I have to take a more proactive approach. So I started to work with a nutrition coach. And as I was losing the weight, I'm probably like 35 pounds down at this point. I said, would you help me identify strategies or create strategies so that I never have to do this again? For anybody that has been on a weight loss journey, especially that significant, um, you're kind of like a one and done situation. You don't really, you don't want to revisit that. Um, and so he said, no, I'm not your therapist. And I thought, wow, that was a bad answer. But also, what a great opportunity. What it taught me was that there was so much more to this journey than just the food. It was about mindset and how much we use food as a weapon, or sometimes like a soothing tool to help us not feel. And so that day I went out on my front lawn with one of my dogs and I was journaling. And that's where I really believe the SNAP method found me. That's where I started to develop this methodology to help me retire these limiting beliefs and break the emotional connection to food. And as I developed it and I started, I got all my certifications and all the things I had to do, but I started coaching and I really felt like I was really transforming people's lives for the better. It wasn't really about losing the weight anymore. It was like, I want to achieve my dreams. I have these bigger, loftier goals, these things that I never thought were attainable before. But now that I have taken care of myself, my gut is healthy, my mental health is in check, I really want to go for that next thing. And that's what I've been able to do. And I absolutely love it. And as again, in the early days, I was going through like the evolution of the SNAP method. I was on a walk and I thought, joyologist is the only thing that comes to mind that would be like an umbrella term for what I do. That everything I do is so firmly rooted in joy. And, joy is at the center of all my decision making. My social media feed only brings me joy. I don't allow things in that could possibly stir up any kind of toxicity in my life. My friendships, all evaluated with a joy lens in mind, everything. Um, and that really helped to repair my family. And like I said, my son now is um, annoying me like a 17-year-old should, right? He's doing all the things that you would expect him to do. And I'm so thankful for that. And I have joy to thank for that. And you're right, by the way, that joy is a state of mind. It's a choice. Happiness is usually a result of something. Somebody says, "Oh, Carol, I love your hair." And that makes you happy, right? But joy is saying, "I love myself and I'm committed and aware and proud of who I am. And I don't need Coleen to tell me that I have nice hair. I know I have nice hair and I'm a good person," right? So it's like a subtle difference, but it's really powerful too.
Very powerful, because what I'm seeing is it puts it in our hands. We're almost like taking responsibility, and because life can be so difficult, what you went through with your son, and to be able to come out of that and learn how to choose. I mean, once again, I'm back to that choice. Choose joy despite circumstances being challenging is so important. Now, when you're working with, do you work primarily with women? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As much as I love the men out there, they don't like to admit they have feelings and emotions. And so
Hmm. I hear
yeah,
you.
I'm almost exclusively women.
Okay, my audience is almost exclusively women, and women over the age of 40, 50, and beyond.
Yeah.
And so what I see working with women in this demographic is there's this shift. They go through perimenopause, all those hormonal changes, which is like a roller coaster. Then they're coming out the other side through this transition of menopause, and it can be such an opportunity to do things you've always wanted to do, you've always dreamed of doing, finding a purpose, because now we love our kids, but they're growing up, starting to leave the nest, and we can find that. um, do you find that with, I don't know your demographic, probably moms and above, but working with women, do you find that they have difficulty going through this perimenopausal window and
Yeah.
tapping into purpose and finding joy in that second half of life?
Definitely. I have definitely coached women younger than 40 many times. In fact, I think my youngest client ever was 16. And I will caveat that by saying I would only coach her if I could also be very connected to her mother and that she had to speak in using certain words. I was not about to help a 16-year-old diet. Um, but mostly it's 40 and above. I would say my average age is about 47, 48.
Okay.
My oldest client right now is 81.
Oh,
So
wow.
it does vary. But I I don't like to take on clients that, like, for example, just want to lose 10 pounds to, look good in a bikini on their vacation, because that's just going to come back. I just want to really coach them once so that they can, and I always say this, like, it's the worst sales technique ever, that please do not give me the renewal. I don't want it. I want you to go and like do this once and then go live your life and make this lifestyle change. Let's repair the broken stories in your mind and get you to a place where you love the skin that you're in. When it comes to that perimenopausal stage, yes, and I spend a lot of time coaching people on the value of like gut health, because when your gut health is in check, everything changes. That's where your hormones are produced and absorbed. And so if your gut isn't healthy, all of that gets disrupted. Your sleep gets disrupted, organ function gets disrupted, all kinds of things. And so whether or not it's ultimately weight loss that's the person's goal, I always dial in on gut health first. And then I try to layer in a little bit of physical fitness, not because, they think that's the way to lose weight, but more so because that is really important for our mental health. When you work out, and you of course know this, but you create rich red blood cells that shoot straight to your brain, producing serotonin, which makes you feel good. So your gut is kind of healing, you're working out a little bit, the sweat feels good, and then we can get into mindset and we get to breaking the emotional connection with food and retiring those limiting beliefs, those stories that have kept us stuck for decades. And I can give 1,000 examples of my own limiting beliefs that I've retired, and they don't come back because I have set them free. I've literally let them go.
Oh, so important. It's interesting. I was just having this discussion with a guest about limiting beliefs that will carry sometimes for decades.
Mm,
And they get to be like house guests where they're in us and we're not even aware of it. I know for me, once I got rid of, there was one particular story that needed to clear out. And when that one cleared out, now I recognize narratives looping around in my head. I'll be like, oh, okay, Carol, that's not really true. Let's
yeah.
unpack this. And you get that awareness. Now, with weight loss, at the very beginning, you were talking about your own journey. You work with a coach who was more focused on the physical, but then you had that awareness, like, okay, this is not enough because I don't want to go through this again. And what I see a lot in the weight loss space, and it pains me, is people regain it and regain even more than what they have and wind up the other side with metabolic issues, worse off than how they started. Why do you think they're regaining this weight?
Because they haven't done that mindset work. I 1000% believe that. Having gone through this myself, knowing if I don't address the reasons I got here, when somebody says something to me and it jars me, I immediately go run to the pantry and polish off a bag of chips. That is not a healthy response and does nothing to address the reason why I was triggered or the thing that the person said. And that is just on repeat. When you start to deal with that trigger and really look at it, and you look at that person as a mirror, like this is something, Carol, that you need to learn for yourself. That's why it's coming up, why you're triggered. It's fascinating, and you start to look at it with a sense of gratitude and appreciation, like this is great because if I learn this, I can retire it and this isn't going to come up again. and and I was talking to somebody earlier today too about this same topic where I said, so then, every time you like up level yourself, that particular trigger, like especially the ones that have been around for decades, it might come back up, but it comes at a different level and it affects you not as dramatically as it did. And so I also want to impress upon people that while you think you let that go at the level you were at. But once you up level, sometimes some of those limiting beliefs come back, but it's the same process to remove them. And the victory is in the rebound. So what maybe kept you stuck for months, that limiting belief where you were just like in a rut forever, once you start to deal with it, the time spent in the valley is far less. And I got triggered about something over the weekend, and I immediately texted a friend and said, I just need this like date and time stamped. Like I don't care if you respond or anything. I just, for my own sanity, I want to see when this hit and how long it took me to recover. And it took seconds because I know better. And I have let that story go many times. But I've also been up leveling myself so much that some of that does still come back up. So I don't shame myself for the fact that that trigger came. It was just a reminder of how far I've come and that I still have a little bit of work to do on that trigger to truly set it free.
Oh, I think you hit on such an important point because I've done a lot of work on myself and to get past some past trauma. And what I found is, yeah, the triggers will still come up. It's not like they completely go away, but what's changed for me is my response to it. Used
Yes.
to be I would just get triggered and go off on a tangent and be in an emotional chaos for a bit. Now I recognize, oh, I just got triggered. You know, what's going on here? Do I need to process this? And my whole processing is completely different around that.
Yes, definitely. I tell people journaling is the fastest way to get through this whole thing. So, if you want, I can dive into the SNAP method a little bit if that would be helpful
Yes,
to kind of
I would love
articulate.
that. Thank you.
Okay. So, the SNAP method is the methodology that I developed that helps you through this whole process, methodically, I guess, to use the word twice. But it really is important to honor each step, to not try to like fly through it because you really don't want to deal with it, which I have also done. But the first, phase is S, which stands for stop. So that trigger comes, you don't talk, text, or type anyone because you're triggered. So you're like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
call my husband and scream at him because he can take it, and I have to get this off my chest. No, I tell people take your journal out and just record all of the symptoms as you know them to be. So, do you get that lump in your throat or your heart starts to race? There's always a visceral response. Your palms get sweaty or you start to shake. There's always some physical, visceral response. But also record the situation as you believe it to be because this is your truth. We will soon find out there is a difference between your truth and the actual truth. But for right now, this is your truth. So record it as you believe it to be. This isn't the time to judge it or correct it. And that's part of the notice phase, which is N, is like what is happening as this situation comes up? What are the stories that you're telling yourself? How are you reacting to this person? Is it always just this person, or is this topic an issue with multiple people? Because again, the opposite side is your mirror. This is what you're supposed to be learning. So it's important to kind of capture everything. The A phase stands for accept and analyze. And so now that you've recorded everything, a little bit of time has passed, your blood pressure's come down a little bit. In A, I want you to like read your journal entry and really try to separate fact from emotion. I have this story of I can never do anything right, or had, and it came up one morning when I was coming back from the gym, but I was coming back a little bit late, and my husband was upset that I was late because I was making him late for work and all of that. I'm sure you've done it where you're like, I
Hmm.
can never do anything right. I'm like the most imperfect parent in the world. And I was like, hang on a second. That's ridiculous. Okay. He didn't tell me he needed to be in work early. And I was only a couple of minutes late because I was having a conversation with a friend that was well within my right. But when I did the snap method on this trigger, I really took the time, and it's about making the time to articulate all the things that I had done right that day and all the things that I had done wrong. Not to prove I'm a perfectionist or anything like that or that I was right, but when you look at the facts, how many things had done right that day? And it was over 60 or 70, and I had done one thing wrong. So factually, is it true that I can never do anything right? No, of course not. It's ridiculous. And so I was able to let that trigger go because I focused on the facts, not my emotions, right? So that was a really powerful step. So that's really what the A step is all about, is making the time to really dig in, look at the facts, and try to separate the emotion out of it. And the last step, my favorite, is practice gratitude. You want to thank the trigger for coming because it's your body's way of saying that there's more work to be done. It's not a bad thing. It's just something you haven't learned yet. When I was on someone else's show recently, I said, I don't know anything about quantum physics, and I don't want to know anything about quantum physics, right? But like, if I did, I'd be triggered by somebody who knows a lot about that, kind of schooling me on quantum physics. But I don't care about them, so it's fine. Like, that's why I'm not triggered by it. But you just have something that you need to learn, that you haven't mastered yet. Big deal. We all have a first day. We all have, these runways that we have to go down to learn the lessons that we're meant to learn. That's just life, and it's amazing when you're able to set those triggers free. How you just feel this like overwhelming sense of gratitude and abundance for something that used to keep you small and like stifled.
Yes. You know what I'm really loving here is the step by step. I'm an analytical person. And so I have to do things in a step by step process. It has to make sense in my mind. So I'm loving this process of acknowledging, the trigger and then, coming through that whole process to discover, okay, what do I need to learn? What do I need to do differently rather than beating ourselves up? Because I find too, a lot of times these triggers, they're wrapped up in maybe there's guilt, there's shame, there's self-blame, which does no good, does
Mm-hmm.
absolutely no good, and we can't progress through that. So when you're working with a client, you're having them journal. Do you get some pushback on the journaling? Because I know when I was first asked to do this, I was with my therapist, and she had me to do a timeline. And I fought back. Like it took a few weeks for me to finally do what she had asked me to do because I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to take the time to sit down. It just seemed like to me, it seemed silly, like it wasn't going to work. But when I finally did that timeline and journaled it out, it was extremely powerful. I had like one aha moment after another. Do you get that pushback a little bit from ladies?
Oh, I do. Yep. And myself, I had done that too. I think the amazing thing is when because a lot of people will say, well, I don't like to journal. Okay, but how do you like how you feel right now?
Mhm.
Right? Like, which one hurts more? Like, let's just kind of walk through this. I used to never journal, but when I learned the power of journaling, like, I will never not journal again. I feel that in the beginning, if you don't know what you're doing, you could simply write, I'm journaling. I don't know what to write. I'm journaling. I'm writing some stuff. Like whatever. The subconscious will bring those prompts up organically to you. Maybe not in the first minute, but give it a little bit and just start writing. There's a psychological connection between the brain, your fingertips, the pen and the paper that is something that can't be replicated through a laptop. So it is really powerful to get a pen out and actually write it. But I feel like when I talk with clients about acting as though you only have today. Now, the reality is we all only have a number of days left. For some, it might be 30,000. For some, it might be three. So act as though you only have today. And with today, let's do the work to get rid of some of this stuff so that you can return to that place of joy. You talk about shame. I will shame the shame right out of anybody. Like, shame has no place in my world because we've all just done that our entire lives. And how's it working out? Like, it doesn't feel good. So let's, direct our energy towards the things that feel good, like compassion, grace, authenticity, joy, right? All these great things, those feel good. So those should get our energy. But when it comes to journaling, it doesn't take as long as people think it does. There are some limiting beliefs that I've let go of, particularly around, one of my siblings that I thought was really, really deep. I let that story go in 3 pages. 3 pages. Like, that's amazing. And sure, some little things still come up because again, I'm up leveling and so the trigger kind of comes back a little bit, but that's 3 pages. That is so worth my time to have my headspace back and my mental health in such a place that I can deliver the best version of myself to those I love.
So good. Talking about your brother, it just made me think of a personal family situation where I was just reunited with some brothers I had not seen, one in almost 20 years. And a lot of it just had to do with both of us being stuck in our heads and
Hmm.
having these, once again, these limiting stories looping around, and then all of us holding on to it, needing to feel right and needing to feel like our version of what happened was true. And so it can lead to a lot of healing in your life and improvement in your relationships. Not just aside from the weight loss, the exercise, the fitness aspect, just the healing of relationships within your life.
Yes, completely. With him, I said, I'll I take accountability and responsibility for these things that I didn't even realize I had done, which was
Hmm.
basically that I didn't do something and I should have. And so I take responsibility for that and owned probably more than my fair share of what I needed to own. Well, he came back with a fiery email full of spice. And I thought, wow, because I had let all of that go, I had such compassion for that angry person that I don't even recognize, that I was like, wow, this is how you're choosing to live your life. Thanks for showing me I don't need to live that way. And when you come around, hopefully you do, we can try again. But wow, that's not an energy I want to be around. And it was really empowering to just say, like, I get to say who can be in my life and who can't, and not from a place of anger, but like protecting your peace, and how empowering it is to also create space for people that I'm obviously not in alignment with, to say, oh, I'm really sorry that you're that unhappy.
Right. We're only responsible for our own reactions. That's been
Yeah.
difficult for me, I know, where I would take responsibility for someone else's reaction to
Yeah.
situations. And we can only do what we feel is right in the moment and then be at peace with that and let that other person work through what they need to work through.
Yeah. Oh, that backpack gets really heavy after a while when you're the only one carrying the load. So, yeah.
Oh, yes. Now, when someone comes to you, they have weight to lose. So you're working on the physical aspect, the nutrition, some exercise, you're working on the mindset. How long does it take? Because I feel like there's this lag, like people get on board with their workouts and they start tracking their food or whatever they do. That's what they're doing in my program. But then there's a lag with the mindfulness part of it that has to come on board. How long do you see that process taking with people?
I mean, everybody's different. And of course, some people take a little longer to ramp up than others. They're kind of like fighting it the entire way. So they'll take longer. I try to tell people, let's like put down your calendar and pick up your compass. So rather than focus on, wow, it's going to take me, X number of weeks or months to lose the weight and make the changes, how about let's like focus on where you want to go, and over time we create really small goals. So first people will say, like, we'll just use 50 pounds as a round number. I want to lose 50 pounds. So I write that down, but I very quickly pay no attention to it, because I want your goals to be more short term, like, I don't know, you know uh, hit the gym 3 times in the month of December, or something like that, right? Like something non-weight related, but more than you're doing now, so that you can see that progress. When it comes to a transformation, I try to tell people, realistically, transformations aren't possible inside 90 days. You're trying to do so much with getting your food in check. Again, I'm not referring to like the person that has to lose 10 pounds before their beach vacation, but this is people that are like really trying to change their life. I don't see how that happens inside of 6 months, truly, because you want to get your food in check first. To have that proper gut health, the lining of your small intestine, and this might be too much information, but that sheds every 7 days. So you don't start to like feel better no matter what changes you're making for the first few weeks, and you're still trying to figure it out. And so once you start to feel a little bit better, I encourage some level of physical fitness. that brings you joy. So I'm never going to say, Carol, I want you to run, 6 days a week, because you'll never do it and you'll resent me like crazy for it. So pick the fitness that works for you or don't. I strongly recommend fitness, but I've had lots of clients lose over 100 pounds and never work out. I still don't understand that, but but that's because I need it, right? I love to work out. And then, we slowly weave the mindset piece in, because they'll start to just feel emotionally a little bit lighter. And some of these topics can be heavy. So, I address it over time. And I have some clients that have been with me for like a year and a half or 2 years, because they had a significant weight loss and didn't even want to deal with the mindset piece until later. And then I have some that have, lost 30 pounds and made major life changes at like the 6 to 8 month mark.
Yeah, there is that individuality. And I think too, it's really normal, the stages of change. And we learn to take, recognize this as we coach people in health coaching in particular, all those different stages where, pre-contemplation, they're not quite aware, contemplation, okay, I think I need to do something about this. And I know I failed to recognize for a long time. I would think, okay, once they got to that action and maintenance phase, all right, we're there. Well, then the little, I don't want to call it backsliding, but they would go back to a previous stage that it's like, whoa, we just went through that, months ago. And what are we doing back here again? And then
Yeah.
finding out that that's completely normal for us to do. Have you found the same thing to be true?
Oh, yes. I just had a client the other day say, I think I have like 10 more pounds to lose. Because again, that initial goal is irrelevant, really. It just gives me context. But as we get closer towards that number, I'll check in and say, like, how are we doing against that goal? For him, this is one of my female clients. For him, he said, you know what? I just want to let loose around the holidays. And I thought, that is not the right attitude. Okay. So it's hard to hear, because that's like he's going back to those old patterns, and, looking at this whole process as punishment rather than making significant changes so he can live a longer life. I'm not saying to not eat the cookies. I'm saying don't eat them 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. And like taking the gloves off and really just like throwing caution to the wind. That really concerns me. And so I'm very hopeful that, when he starts back up in a couple of weeks, that, there wasn't significant um, weight gain, but also like that behavioral change, because he's so capable. But he's got to make that mindset shift, and I can't make it for him, where he has to see, I am putting my health first, and I will create space and make space for those treats that I love, but they can't be like the focus of my life.
Mm. Yeah, you make an important point. I remember the first bodybuilding, bikini bodybuilding show that I did, and all of the diet was really not the working out, but the diet was new to me. And got all prepped for the show, had no problem staying on track. And then the minute I stepped off stage, just started eating everything in sight.
Oh,
All
yeah.
of the things I couldn't have, made myself sick. I did this a few times with competitions, and I had a back and forth struggle before something clicked. And I finally went, you know what? I don't like how this makes me feel. The gut issues, the bloating, I don't even want to go through this again, and moved past that. And it was so freeing, but it took me, I'm going to say a couple of years, maybe more, to work through that process.
Oh, yes. Yeah. One of my clients, we had gotten her to her goal weight. Then she didn't want to do the mindset piece. Fine. She can do it on her own. Entered a competition, and I thought, okay, we'll see what happens.
Mhm.
She got, as lean as she was supposed to get. And I don't know if she placed or not. I can't remember, but she gained 15 pounds overnight. Because of course she went for like the French fries and all the chocolate shakes and stuff. got so sick because her body was like, what are you doing to me? But it caused her mental health to plummet. And I said, I wish you would have let me coach you through this so that we could talk about the emotional, like the psychological part. I'm not against these competitions at all, by the way, but I know that when they're over, it's just like any diet, right? Now, how do you sustain that or some level of that? Maybe she won't be as lean, but she has ballooned up 30 pounds in like 2.5 months. It's it's like unrecognizable, and it just crushes me because if we had worked on the foundation, that mental health piece, that emotional piece, sure, she would have gained a little bit because she was super lean for the show, but she wouldn't be anywhere near where she is now, and it just breaks my heart.
Ugh, I agree. I don't coach competitors anymore, and that's one of the reasons why it doesn't have to be an unhealthy lifestyle, but it can easily turn that way where you go down to this ultra low body fat, which your brain doesn't like. Your brain's like, "Are you trying to kill me? Like, what is this? Are we starving?" So then all the hunger hormones go wacky. And what nobody told me, and when I went through that process, was recognizing, okay, hormonally, I'm out of balance right now. So
Hmm.
take a breather, take some time. Your body's going to reset, come up to maintenance. But I wasn't taught that. So I do see a lot of women jumping in. Oh, this is my dream. I'm going to do this. They're all excited, posting all over Instagram. And then boom, it's not uncommon to go up 15 pounds with the sodium and,
Yeah.
all of those, refined, fatty, sugary foods. So I think that that is a piece missing in the competition world is that mindset piece.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I, I give all the competitors so much credit because that is a level of discipline that I'm not sure people truly understand. I mean, that is, I had a trainer once who was competing and wouldn't lose any weight for like the first 8 weeks, then would plummet, lose a ton. And every time we were training, she was eating chicken, broccoli, and white rice over and over and over again.
Been there.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with chicken, broccoli, and white rice, though. But, you know, 3 times a day is a little much.
It is. It gets old. The worst for me was the soggy tilapia with the
Oh.
with the slime on the top of it, and I was at a low point when I had to eat that cold on an airplane on my way to a competition. But
Now, can you look at tilapia the same way again?
no, I won't eat
No.
it. We have a freezer full out there. I don't compete anymore, and it's been sitting out there for over a year now. I cannot do that. I can do asparagus. I can't do the tilapia.
Oh, that's hilarious. Thank God there's
Now,
other types out there.
yes. Now, with nutrition, do you have a particular philosophy such as intermittent fasting or whole foods or whole 30 or anything like that that you incorporate with your clients?
That's a great question. So I do assign clients macros. And the reason I do that, which, again, some people say, it's too strict. It's not strict, it's an education. I want you to know the value of the food you're putting in your body. So knowing that, you know, chicken is protein with a little bit of fat. I had this one client who was a pescatarian, and so for those that don't know, it's a vegetarian that eats fish, basically. And she she was like, I just don't understand why I'm gaining so much weight. I mean, look at what I eat. And I looked and I was like, who eats that much cauliflower? Like, she would eat heads of cauliflower, not
Oh,
knowing that they were carbs, because you hear fruits and vegetables are good for you, and they are, just not heads and heads of cauliflower, right? And imagine what that is doing as
oh
like
man.
cruciferous vegetable. The gas that is creating in her stomach must have been like out of this world. But just teaching her that that was a carb and the value, like how much she was consuming in terms of carbs was hugely beneficial. And so I like to teach macros because I think it is the easiest way to break down food into categories and teach people that carbs, fats, and proteins are all really important in the body and in your lifestyle, but they all have a job to do in the body. And so I teach them what that job is and how the foods affect them so that they can then, kind of like figure out what works for them longer term. I don't
Oh,
mind intermittent fasting. I am against the extreme intermittent fasting where you can only eat like 4 hours a day or something. I mean, that is messing with your insulin, your organ function, like all kinds of things that you don't see. And I will say I'm 100% against keto because it's actually not a diet, it's a treatment protocol for epilepsy. So that scares me when, things like that start to, creep into the nutrition world. The some of the type 2 diabetic medications, like, of course, I can't think of them right now. I have a client that was on it. Uh, uh, Wegovy? No, I
the
can't think of the name of it.
semaglutides, like Ozempic for weight loss.
Ozempic. That's one of them. There are two that I hear all the time, and
Hmm.
people are using it for weight loss, but it's actually meant for diabetics. And so weight loss is a side effect because we're, kind of regulating their sugars, but that's not what it's meant for. So I get really passionate, we'll call it, when, like marketing takes over. And believe me, I was a marketing exec for 26 years. I get the value of marketing, but it can also be a curse. And if we don't educate ourselves on what the true purpose of things are, we don't know what kind of damage we're doing internally.
Yes, I do see it misused and prescribed in doses it shouldn't be prescribed in. And then there's no plan with a health coach or a nutritionist so that they can eventually take the training wheels off
Yeah.
and live the healthy lifestyle. So, what I do see is a lot of weight regain, muscle loss, not particularly from the actual semaglutide, but muscle loss because they're just relying on, Ozempic or whatever it is. They're relying on that medication or peptide really is what it
Yep.
is, that peptide to lose weight, and they're not doing the lifestyle habits. Those aren't in place. Once again,
Yeah.
the mindset work missing, the
Yep.
nutrition missing, the weight training, strength training missing. And then of course, they're going to lose muscle and maybe be in a worse situation with their metabolism than when they started.
Yeah. And having learned nothing about the value of food, right? So that's the scariest part for me. But I would say overall, I'm not against any major program except for the ones I've mentioned. But I just want to teach people moderation. And, people always ask me, can you create a meal plan for me? And I always say no. I don't want you to eat like me. I want you to eat like you. And that's how you stick with it is we make a lifestyle change and we just make some adjustments. You just might be unknowingly snacking, which can be an extra 4 to 5 to 600 calories a day. You might just be, under consuming protein. And so we have to scale back the carbs a little bit and add in more protein. It's they're just like little levers that we have to balance out. And by teaching people that, they start to look at food differently. And I can't even tell you how many texts I get on a Friday night at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. Here's the menu for the restaurant I want to go to. What am I eating? And I'm like, okay, knowing you and what you consume, this is what I would choose. And if in getting people comfortable with saying, maybe, you could kind of like put that in a to go bag so that, like I only focus on this part of the meal. That's the other thing too, is, pushing on the restaurants to give you the food that you need, not what they want to serve.
Mm. Yeah, I always tell my ladies, don't be afraid to ask for things. how you
Yeah.
want them cooked. I got really good at this when I did bodybuilding because my husband loves to eat out. So it would have been a thing if we couldn't go to a restaurant, that would have been a thing for our marriage because it's
Yes.
such, we're foodies, it's a part of us. So I just learned to order, please don't put the dressing, bring me oil and vinegar. Don't drench my food in salt and oils, just grilled. And I just got assertive with, polite about it, of course, but
Yeah.
assertive with asking for what I knew would be best for me.
Yeah. And truthfully, you're paying for it. So for some reason, women generally have trouble with that. And I say, but you're paying for it. So you're paying for a thing. You should get the thing that you really want in the way that you want it. Now, I'm not saying, you pay for a swordfish and then you get prime rib. I'm not trying to like completely change the menu. But if you feel that serving is too big, ask for half and put the other half in the to go container right away, so that you're not tempted to just mindlessly eat it because it's sitting there in front of you on the plate. If that's what would make you successful, do that. Because if it were a matter of life and death, you would advocate for it, right?
Right.
So,
Hmm.
if you have to look at it that way, I can help you get there. But I mean, it is your right. You're paying for it. So it's just a matter of, like you said, just feeling comfortable enough to advocate for yourself and, you know, tell people what you need. We go, you're talking about like going out to eat. We go to this restaurant a couple of towns over. My younger son loves it, and it's like a teppanyaki place. So, the big grill where they do all of
Oh,
it in
yeah.
front of you. Yeah. Teppanyaki, right? Am I getting that wrong?
Um,
I think I
I
have that
don't
right.
know. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
This is how bad I am at it because I can't eat any of the. I have a gluten allergy and a soy allergy. So
Oh,
Asian restaurants hate me, right? So I always say I have to order kind of something. I mean, I'll sit here and I'll pay for this seat because I know I'm getting the entertainment portion of of the meal, but I have to order something separate, and it's always like steamed vegetables and grilled chicken, or I'll order some of the seafood or something. They are so used to this. The food allergy side of food is so rampant everywhere that they are well equipped to pivot if they have to. So if you look at the ingredients, which at this place is, steak, shrimp, scallops, and chicken, I think. Like I could have that cooked any way I want. They have it there. They just choose to cook it this way. But if I need it another way, that's okay. And it's just getting comfortable with, having a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation. My favorite is like when they're like, "So you have allergies?" "Yes, I have allergies." "Well, tell me about your allergies." And they make the focus on me, like I have a spotlight on me and I have to go into depth about my allergies. That does get uncomfortable, but so does ignoring the allergies and being sick for 2 weeks.
oh yeah. I've
Yeah.
experienced the same. I have to be very careful with gluten. I don't necessarily, I'm not celiac. I don't have this big reaction, but I'm sensitive. And
Yes.
so if I get too much, it's like the puffy fingers, the digestive issues, even skin things. I really got to be careful of it. And I've asked for things gluten free, and it's like they're on you. Like, is this an allergy? Is this, they're worried
Yep.
about that cross contamination and or bringing out foods. I've had this one too where just because you're gluten free or you're dairy free doesn't mean food has to be bland with no seasoning. It's almost
Yes.
like there's this disconnect with, they'll bring out something that's, has absolutely no flavor.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, they're great at that place. They will put all kinds of seasonings on there for me, but I also, try to tell clients that's saving you calories because your food isn't like marinating in, fat and extra carbs. So think of it this way. Now you get to have your fat in another form that
Hmm.
you're not having because it's not being doused in a marinade. So there are puts and takes, and it's just a matter of, getting used to asking for what you want and staying true to your goals. That said, I also tell clients if you decide, like truly decide that you want to go off of your plan and eat whatever it is you want to eat, then you don't get to shame yourself the next day when the scale goes up. You have made the choice to go off your plan, so just accept that the scale isn't going to look the way that you want it to look for a couple of days. It's a couple of days. It's not a big deal. What's a big deal is when you go back to that old lifestyle and you kind of go way downhill with, you know, your self-care and your food choices. So, it's okay to go off plan, but it's not okay to shame yourself for it.
Agreed. I see that a lot. I call it the all or nothing mentality,
Yes.
where there's one meal where they go off plan. And sometimes I go off plan. I'm traveling and it's like, I'm just going to relax it a little bit. But it's all about, the next day you start fresh, you start new. A lot of times that weight gain is, salt,
Yep.
sodium, in restaurant foods in particular. On the ship, I know that was a big deal. Everything had a lot of sodium.
Yep.
And I've just learned not to stress about it because I
Yeah.
know that couple of pounds or 3 pounds, it's going to be gone usually by the end of the week once I'm back on track. So I really like that you brought that in. Now, I want to be
100%.
respectful of your time, Colleen. And as we start to wrap up, first of all, was there anything that we didn't talk about you'd like the listener to know? And then, second of all, how can they follow your work, get in contact with you, and work with you?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, really, it all comes down to, self-love. And if I can impress upon, this notion to all of your listeners, it is you are worthy of self-love and it is within your reach. You just have to take that first step in order to grasp it. And that's where, we work on limiting beliefs and all of that. But in order to get in contact with me, Instagram is the easiest way at the Coleen Greco. And Colleen is with one L. Unique spelling, mom. I was the seventh kid. I think she just was like, whatever, and just put a name on the, on the birth certificate. But yes, at the Colleen Greco. And I would love, welcome the opportunity to, set up a discovery call and see if, I can help you reach your goals. That would be an honor.
Oh, wonderful, Colleen. Thank you so much for being on the show. I will put all of your information in the show notes so that the listeners can find you.
Great.
And as we wrap up, to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing.
Thank you.
Thank you.